Okay, well, welcome everybody. Welcome to this. It's just a very quick introduction to a rather large body of work. And we'll be here for probably about an hour. And if you have questions, feel free to ask. And at the end, we'll have a bit of a Q&A if people do have questions. All right, now, before we get started, let's go through the acknowledgement of country. So in the spirit of reconciliation, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Okay, so today what we're going to go through is we're going to quickly talk about Dr. Hammer and his background. We'll talk about the model of ontological development, key concepts to this model and his approach to treatment, which are very important and have really been very helpful for me in treating people. We'll talk about the phases in the evolution of being. In this lecture tonight, we're just going to focus on the natural functions of each phase. And then we're going to place that model within the great turning of the Taoist cosmology. And then tonight I thought we'd take a pattern, or not a pattern, a sort of an energy transformation in one of the phases. And we'll talk through how it develops, how it manifests, and possible paths for treatment. And then last up, we'll discuss the course, the psychology of dragon risers, redbird flies. Okay, so Dr. Hammer is, he's now 98. He was born in 1924. He was a fighter pilot, not a fighter pilot. He was a navigator in a bombing aircraft in World War II. And this is where he started seeing the effects of the psychological effects of trauma on people. And he began to have an interest in this field. He studied medicine at Cornell in New York, and he specialized in psychiatry. He did 7 years of psychoanalysis at the William White Institute in New York. And he was very heavily influenced by Harry Stack Sullivan, who speaks about different stages of development from a Western psychological perspective that people go through in their growth. When he was a psychiatrist, he began to see that especially with psychoanalysis and his training there, that it was a very intellectual approach, and he could see that there needed to be more touch, more of a physical approach, which led him to work with some of the more somatic psychological, some of the somatic psychological pioneers, like Fritz Perls with Gestalt, Alexander Lowen with bioenergetics, and Ida Rolf with Rolfing. Then finally, he made it to Chinese medicine, where he studied with John Van Buren in England for 4 years, and that's where he got his formative training in Chinese medicine. And then he studied with Dr. Shen for 8 years in New York on his return to New York. And this is where he learned Dr. Shen's methods of diagnosis, his method of pulse diagnosis, face reading. And he apprenticed for 8 years, but had a very close association with him for 30 years. And this is the information that he learned off Dr. Shen is what he has then passed on to me, which I'm presenting in the Pulse classes and in this lecture as well, or this lecture series. Okay, so dragon risers, redbird flies Dr. Hammer talks about the evolution of being, and he has a particular fascination with the physical, mental, and spiritual growth of somebody from their inception right through until their death. So he describes the model of ontological development as the unfolding of the life force in continuous increments of increasingly complex organization, function, and performance as an organism progresses from a single cell to a mature adult and finally to death and beyond. So he has, okay, who's not muted? Okay, let's see. No, it's not been into that. Okay. So he calls this growth and this increasing complexity of function and interactions as the evolution of being, or the process of becoming. Now, important concepts for this model, and just the way Dr. Hammer treats in general. And as I said, this has been very helpful to my practice. And one of the main things that he talks about is unconditional positive regard. And that is that we all command the same respect, that we're not created equal, except for the respect which we may demand for who we are. So that is, I always keep that in the back of my mind whenever I'm dealing with interactions with patients. Now, another important concept is bonding and contact is essential for human beings. It's what makes us part of the race, and it's part of to survive as a human. We need to bond. We need to have these connections with people, with our fellow man. Now, also very importantly is this model is a non-pathologizing model. Now, when he was in his psychoanalytic years, he said that in psychoanalysis, there's the concept of patient resistance, where the patient is resisting progression. Now, Dr. Hammer postulated that resistance, the patient wasn't resisting from a place of conscious voluntary resistance. This resistance was actually an adaptive strategy that he noted and he said needed to be respected as an attempt at survival for that person. So it wasn't actually a pathological or a defensive maneuver of an immature personality. They're restorative behaviors that are an attempt of the person to make contact with their fellow humans while staying intact, while keeping their mental faculties, while being able to operate and function normally in the world. So they're considered deviations from the natural functions where the person operates according to the resources available to their physiology, rather than being an active resistant to treatment. Now, another important concept is Dr. Hammer's atypical response. Now, these are quotes from Dragon Riser's Redbird Flies. As health practitioners, we are of value to the people who consult us only if we can offer them something significantly different from the usual response. Now, the idea of contact to stay intact in practice is the atypical response. So the adaptive survival strategies we actually see as energy transformations. So the oral person who avoids standing on their own 2 feet and demands to be held and nourished is not doing that out of a premeditated, I will do this. They're operating on a compromised earth phase. The schizoid person who avoids feeling through detachment is operating from a compromised water and earth. The passive aggressive person who avoids assertion by covert resistance isn't doing this by choice, is doing this with the only energy they have available with them in their wood phase. And the uninspired bureaucrat who avoids creativity by enforcing rules has a compromised fire phase. The drifter who avoids commitment by always moving on has issues in the metal phase. So the big thing here is that we as practitioners, we see these more as strengths. Like this person has a strength to continue, albeit they're operating in a different way to what we see the natural functions of those phases. But they're maintaining contact and they're staying intact within the world, within their experience of the world. Now, another important concept that Dr. Hammer drives home is the physical versus mental symptoms. Now, it's a misunderstood theme that it's the assumption of when somebody is subjected to psychological stress, that if they get a physical illness, it's seen as a sign of psychological weakness. Now, in reality, that's the converse is actually true, because when somebody develops physical symptoms, they're actually psychologically sound. So if you think about it, if you're encountering significant psychological stress, and your response to that is neck pain or shoulder pain or a gastrointestinal issue, then that's a small price to pay for keeping your sanity, for remaining, for keeping your mind. So this is quite a different take on that that theme that runs through Western medicine and allopathic medicine. When you have people with pain, and if they can't find, if a cause can't be identified on a test, then it's in their head. So this is another this is another way of looking at things from a more positive and a more patient, well-being, inclusive sort of place. Now, let's just talk about the phases in the cycle of yang and yin. So we're all familiar with this phase where we have it's the birth of yang. Now, this phase is applicable to a breath, a day, a month, a year, or a life cycle. So we're born in water, and then throughout the phase of wood, we have the exponential growth, the burgeoning of life, the growth, the heading towards maturity, up to the full expression of yang in fire. Then as yang starts to descend, we have the growing of yin. As yang's going further into storage through the phase of metal, we have yin growing. And then finally we have yang returning to where it starts for a new cycle. Now, in the center, we have the earth supporting all of those 4 phases. And I'm sure everybody's familiar with the organs, the kidney, liver, heart for fire, lung, and spleen, the yin organs. Now, if we talk about these phases in the evolution of being, now, when we're born, the water phase is the beginning of being. It's the I exist. Now, when we move through the wood, when we're growing, we're rising up against gravity, our neuromuscular system is becoming stronger and developing, our nervous system, our blood, our circulation. In the phase of wood, this is where we're starting to encounter the direction and the assertion of no, I am not. No, I will not do that. This is where we're starting to get some strength into our or some strength to the assertion in our evolution of being. When we get to the fire phase, here we have the full expression of being, and it's like this is the positive assertion of yes, I am. And then moving into the metal phase, we have the maturation and the authority of I am. We have the evolution, kind of the taking in new concepts and reworking them and letting go of old. We have like we have an evolution in our maturity. And then at the end of life, when we return to the water phase, we have we hope we get to the I am at one with the cosmos. Now in the center, we have the earth, and the earth is the boundaries of I am. Like the earth is what's inside us and what's outside us. And, you know, a good analogy of that is the digestive system, which runs through us. You know, it's a border throughout our body from the inside to the outside. Now, we've spoken here on a lineal sort of construct of how the phases are sort of working in a lifetime. However, there are certain phases during life there are certain time periods through life where the phases are slightly more active, like in conception and gestation. The water phase is active, but always supported by the earth phase. You know, in that early growth, the wood phase is more active. But actually, all of these things are happening all of the time. So it's important to keep that in your back of your mind, that we don't just move from water, and then we're done with water, and then we move into wood. The whole time, the water is giving us, the kidneys are giving us the power. The wood is giving us the direction. The fire is giving us the passion. And the metal is giving us sort of the reworking, the in with the sort of the metanoia. Okay, now in terms of bonding, remember, is what makes us part of the human race. So each of the organs have a contribution to bonding. So water gives us the power for the bonds. The wood phase gives us the direction, the assertion of the bond. The fire phase gives us the passion for the union and the communication within the bond. And the metal is the reworking of bonds. It's the reestablishment of bonds, appropriately moving on from old bonds, separating, and then creating new bonds. So everything is happening all at once, but it is important to remember that certain phases are more active at certain points in our lifetime. Now let's just run through each of the phases. And we'll talk about their natural functions. So in terms of the water phase, here we're talking about our kidneys. And the water phase is the phase of winter. It's the north, it's the birth and storage of young. In terms of identity, it's the fundamental existential condition of I exist. And then at the end of the cycle, when we finally return to water, when we're sort of returning to the cosmos, it is the I am one with God or the life force. Now here, God is not any sort of deity. Here it's referring just to the mystery, the ineffable power that governs, you know, the universe and all phenomena in the universe. So I just want to make that clear. There's no indication of any sort of deity with that. Here we could use Tao here as well. So the kidneys are the water of heaven or the cosmos manifesting in man. So kidney essence and Jing, it's an ancestorial cosmic substance that's passed down through generations and through time. It contains the potential of becoming a human being. And within that, it provides a substance and genetic template from which all of the other organs are differentiated. So that's the liver, heart, spleen, and lungs. And birth defects in any organ are a failure of this divine ancestorial energy of the kidney, Jing, and essence. Now, in terms of kidney function, the kidney, in essence, it's our genetic code. It's the blueprint that's come down through millennia and is manifesting in us in this lifetime. So the yin essence is the life of life force. Like kidney yin is our past. Kidney yang essence is the activity that enacts the code. It's the activity that makes life happen according to the blueprint. So kidney yang essence is the force of life force. It's our future. And kidney chi is the integration of both yin and yang essence. And it's a functional aspect of the water phase in the current embodiment in this lifetime. So kidney chi is our current, it's our present. Now, when we're dealing with the water phase and the kidneys, the main existential function is coping with fear of the unknown, fear of what are we doing here? We're on a planet flying through space to who knows where. How did we get here? What are we doing here? Where are we going? Where do we go to? It's the kidneys give us the ability to be able to, or a healthy kidney phase allows us to cope with that existential fear. Now, controlling that fear requires faith, and the kidneys provide us with that faith. Now, kidney yang provides us with the faith in the cosmos or in the divine intelligence of the cosmos. And it gives us the capacity to attain the Tao, to commune with the universal rhythms of divine intelligence so that we can just return, that we can become one with the universe again. Now, the kidney yin gives us faith in our fellow man. So this gives us the capacity to identify with, bond, and make contact with humanity. It allows us to be part of the species. It makes us human. Now, we also need faith in ourselves, in this embodiment, in this lifetime. And this is a function of kidney chi. And the kidney chi allows the self to stay intact. It allows the self to function within parameters that allow a development and the evolution of being through those cycles intact. Now, the main adaptive strategy of the kidneys is projection. So that is taking what we unconsciously deny about ourselves and believing it about others. Now, if we look at the kidneys, tonight we're just going to discuss the natural functions. Like last lecture, I went into all of the deficits, like kidney in deficit versus kidney in excess, and it was a lot of information, and I think some people said it was just too much to process. So here we're just going to talk about the natural functions of each of the phases and go into more detail with just one pathology or one non-pathology. Okay, so when we're talking about the kidneys, if we're looking at kidney yin, on the physical plane, kidney yin is our sea of marrow. It's our stored genetic essence. It's the life of life force. On a mental plane, the kidney yin provides us with our humanity, our compassion, our social conscience, our identity with other humans, that we're part of the race, our ability to rationalize, and also our understand our limitations as being human. We are merely mortals. Kidney yin on the spiritual plane, it allows us to access divine love. It allows us to be open and to feel the love of the cosmos, the forces that brought us here, the forces that are leading us through this life, the forces that brought every single one of us here in this moment in time and space. Kidney yin also gives us unconditional forgiveness. And it allows us to cope with that existential anxiety of the meaning of life. Now, kidney chi is our present. It's responsible for our growth, development, our reproduction, and our yuan chi. On a mental plane, kidney chi is about presence. It's being here. It's about being here and now. Kidney chi provides the intelligence of the will, but also our intuition, our unconscious intelligence. Now, in terms of on the spiritual plane, kidney chi allows us to access the divine spirit, to see that we are representations of the cosmos, that it allows us to see, the God in man, the cosmos in us, and us in the cosmos. Kidney chi gives us creative sanity. Now, with creative sanity, we have faith in the process, but with all who've gone before us and all who will come after us. We have awe and reverence for the amazing, for the phenomenal, just for the phenomena in the universe and the nature and all of the energy transformations that are happening. It gives us humility, and it gives us a realistic view of ourselves in the world. Now, when kidney chi becomes depleted, if we don't have faith, we have fear. If we don't have awe, we're flat. If we don't have awe and reverence, both, but we have a flat affect. If we don't have trust, we're suspicious. And if we don't have humility, we're arrogant. So you can see that interaction of kidney yin and yang in the manifestation of kidney chi is very important to our functioning and our, what Dr. Hammer calls our creative sanity. Kidney yang is our future. So it's our stored fire, both genetic and acquired, and it's a source of ministerial fire via Ming Men. It's the force of life force. So on a mental plane, kidney yang, it's the drive of our willpower. It's the drive, and it's our through time willpower. On the spiritual plane, it connects us to divine power. It allows us to connect to the creative intelligence and divine awareness, to become one with and return to the origin at the time of death. Now, the wood phase, the liver. Wood is the phase of spring, the east, the rising sun, and that exponential growth of yang, that birth, that all that energy that comes out in the spring, that rising up against gravity, against that as a person allows us all that neuromuscular growth that allows us to stand up against gravity, to get the upright posture, that all the neuromuscular development, the nervous system, the circulatory system. This is all a function of the wood phase. So the wood phase allows us to stand up and rise against gravity, but also other constraining forces. So those are forces that are inhibiting our evolution of being. Now, the wood phase directs it. The wood phase is the direction. It directs the development of being, and it directs us to. It directs the self to a purposeful, focused manifestation in this lifetime, in this being. And in terms of identity, the wood phase gives us that negative assertion of no, I am not, no, I will not. This is the strength of the wood. So in the wood phase, we have the gallbladder as the decision maker and the liver as the planner. So they work very closely to ensure our survival. And the way this is done, there's two ways that we can go. We can either advance or we can retreat. And it's the development of a balanced wood phase that allows us to know when to move forwards and when to drive us into action and when to pull back and just wait. Now, with the wood phase, a healthy wood phase depends both on nature and on nurture. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about this when we talk about liver yang deficiency or wood yang deficiency. And on a physical plane, the wood is the master of metabolic processes, of anabolism, of building, advancing, and catabolism, the retreating and detoxifying. So the wood phase natural functions, in terms of liver yin, this gives us our ability to retreat, to move away. It's the voluntary surrender of the ego. It gives us our introspection and our tender emotions. It's shui yin blood, and it's the ability to wait, to pull back, to plan, and it's the physical, like the physical manifestations of eyes and vision. In terms of wood liver yang, this is our ability to move forwards, to advance. And it gives us the negative assertion of being. It's like no. It gives us the ability to say no. It's our drive and direction. Now, whereas wood liver yin was shui yin blood, wood liver yang is shui yin circulation. The yang is leading the blood. Now, the wood yang drives us to action. And in terms of seeing, it's the vision, that the forward vision, which allows us to leap to the horizon, to see the consequences of our actions, the forward looking. Now, the fire phase. Here we have the heart, pericardium, small intestine, and triple burner. This is the phase of summer, the south, and it's the zenith of yang. It's the emperor, the heart, the fire. It's our consciousness and our awareness. In terms of identity, it's a positive assertion of yes, I am. It's our creativity. It's the intelligent formulation of original visions and concepts. It's our interpersonal communication, and it's our ability to express those visions and concepts, whether they be verbal, mathematical, musical, visual. It's our ability to be able to express what comes from in us. Now, the existential function of the fire element is love. Now, the relationship between fire and water, Shao Yin, is one between love and fear. And if the heart closes, love gets cut off and fear takes over. Now, the fire phase natural functions, in terms of heart, we have heart yin is our creativity. It's our inspiration, our ideas, our revelation. So, you know, the artists, the creative people amongst us, they have an exuberant heart yin. Heart yang is the ability to be able to communicate that inspiration. It's the expression of all of those ideas and creativity. It's the expression of our awareness. Heart yang is our words and logos. Now, pericardium. Now, actually, I'll just say quickly here, heart yang deficiency can be a very debilitating manifestation, because a heart yang deficient person has all the inspiration, has all the ideas, has the creativity, but just does not have the ability to express it. And it is one of the patterns that makes people feel extremely worthless, and it can drive people down a path of, it's one of the ones that can lead to true ending of life, ending of, you know, this life being. Now, the pericardium. The pericardium is about protection. Pericardium yin, it keeps us receptive, open, but safe. The pericardium is responsible for all of our intimate boundaries and all of our defensive mechanisms. It's our passion and our reason. Now, pericardium yang allows us to reach out into the world. And that reaching out into the world, the pericardium allows us to do that to the right audience, with the right timing, with the right direction. So a person whose pericardium yang is not functioning effectively is a person who's just bumbling, who's kind of out of time and out of sync and just says things at the wrong time. And we've all seen these people. And the person who is pericardium yin deficient is a person who doesn't have the ability to keep themselves safe. The person who lacks decent judgment of integrity of others. Now, the small intestine. The small intestine, just as it is about the separation of pure and impure in the digestive system, here on the mental aspect, the small intestine is about the separation of ideas. So it's distinguishing nourishing from contaminating ideas, creative from destructive, real from meretricious, love from hate. And the triple burner within the fire element, it's our medium for communication. It's our balance, our orientation, and it allows us to be socially integrated. And the triple burner, just like it's in the body, the integration of the lower, middle, and upper burner, in the mind, it's the integration of the medulla, the midbrain, and the cortex. Now, the earth phase is spleen and stomach. So earth is the center. It feeds and nourishes all the other phases during our earthbound lifespan. It's the survival of the individual from inception in this generation. It's digestion, absorption, and metabolism of all substances. So it's not only food, it's ideas. It's the digestion, absorption, and metabolism of ideas and creative ideas. In terms of identity, the earth is the boundaries of I am. And as I mentioned before, when we think about the digestive system running through us, it's very clearly like what's inside us and what's outside us. Now, bonding is fundamental to the evolution of being. We've discussed this. Now, the earth is fundamental to bonding. The earth yin, the spleen, is all about the formation of bonds. And earth yang is about the formation of boundaries and the ability to have separations, to have appropriate separations. And, right from the beginning, we're bonding and separating, right from the moment where conception, where the cells are joining and dividing. So this is the function of sort of earth yin and earth yang. Now, the quality and quantity of bonding of a person with their mother, with their self, and to the entire human race is very dependent on what happens to that person in the first 3 years of their life. And it depends on the mother or the mother in utero for unconditional selfless love, meaning devoting her body to the development of the fetus and, eating well, drinking well, no drugs, no smoking, having a stressless life. But also in those first 3 years, it's the major caregiver, the ability of the infant to bond with the mother and that caregiving, that primary caregiver, that then determines the ability of that person to bond for the rest of their lives. So the natural functions of the earth phase, spleen yin, earth yin, spleen. It's about bonding. It allows us to bond with others and ourselves. It's the formation of the bonds. The earth phase, the spleen, is about our survival. It's about our epigenetics, about our phenotype, about how we respond to the environment, about how we connect to our environment. The spleen is also our digestion. It's our trust, our self-worth, our self-compassion. Now, the earth yang, the stomach. Now, this is the development. The stomach gives it, or earth yang is about the natural development of boundaries. And it's about serving appropriate separations. And so examples of this are, throughout the development of an infant, we move from family to family, from parents to familial surrogates, teachers, coaches, then onto chums, onto the small friendship groups, etc. So that's all a function, the appropriate separations. And they're not necessarily complete separations, they're changing separations. And earth yang is about our appetite. So basically, anybody, if we have a spleen deficiency, then we have somebody who has problems bonding. If we have a spleen excess, then we have people who are over bonded, the narcissists. And if we have a stomach yang deficiency, we have people who are making separations too quickly and inappropriately. And if we have a stomach excess, then we're unable to make those separations. Now, the metal phase is about metanoia. It's about change. It's about reassessment and change. It's the phase of autumn, the west, it's descent. It's, in terms of identity, it's the incorporation of authority into I am. And the metal phase enhances our unity with the cosmos, where all the breathing techniques, all the meditation techniques, they have a fundamental role in bringing the universe or the cosmos into our current being. And this is, again, a function of the metal phase. Now, the metal phase enhances individuation through the transformation and expansion of existing relationships. It's the growth and movement of bonds. It's a function of letting go, which is grieving, and reattaching, rebonding appropriately. It's all about our evolution, our maturation, and our evolution. Now, the natural phases of the metal function the metal phase natural functions. The metal yin, the lungs provide the energetic threads that generate the bonds, and they maintain the mature connection. Now, Dr. Hammer talks about invisible bonds that come out from the center of our body that connect with other people. And when those bonds are broken, the pain that we feel, like in death, for example, the pain that we feel of somebody who we've bonded closely with is the pain of those bonds being broken. So the metal yin, it gives us the ability for renewal, for creating new bonds, and for flexibility, for give and take. Now, metal yang is the taking in and the letting go. The yang gives us the ability to separate, the excitement to move ahead, the metanoia. Here we can, with the assistance of yang, we can move on to new interpersonal and intellectual vistas. It's about the transference of bonds. Now, if we just look schematically at that, what we've just been through there. So here we have birth in water. Here we have the I exist. This is where our becoming begins. We move up through wood, through the negative assertion of no, I am not. And this gives us our direction of being, right up to our full expression of our awareness, our artistry, our communication, our creativity. Here we have the positivity of yes, I am. Then as our yin starts to, as our yang starts to turn to yin and go into, descend and go into the metal phase, then we have the maturation of being, of ideas, of people, of consciousness. We have reassessment, growth, change, metanoia. And then finally, coming back towards water, here we have death. And hopefully we are at one with the cosmos. In the center, we have the earth, the bonds and boundaries and the embodiment of being supporting everything. Now, if we look at this model, and then if we put this on top of the 6 conformations, where we have in the north, we have Shao Yin, we have imperial fire, the life and force of life force. Here we have the east, the wood. We have our Jui Yin and our Shao Yang. In the south, we have our Tai Yang. In the west, we have our Yang Ning, and in the center, we have Tai Yin. So you can now begin to see that this model, put on top of this model, gives us an idea of the conformations that we're looking at. So issues with development and with wood, we're looking at Jui Yin and Shao Yang formulas. If we're looking at water phase, we're looking at Shao Yin. If we're looking at fire phase, well, with fire, we can be looking at Shao Yin or Tai Yang. With the center, with bonding, we're looking at Tai Yin formulas. And with metal, we're looking at Yang Ning formulas. Okay, so what I thought we'd do is just for the last few minutes is just talk very briefly about Wood-Yang deficiency. Now remember, Wood-Yang gives us our ability to move forwards. So here we have somebody who can't move forwards. And somebody who can't move forwards, so the ability to advance is undermined when it's the most adaptable course. So this person is stuck. Now, Wood-Yang deficiency can come from from like 2 real sources. So one is from a more physical means where you have actually an inherited deficiency in the liver, or you could have some sort of event that occurred. So there could be some sort of illness like hepatitis or mononucleosis, or it could be from retained toxicity, from retained toxin. The liver is unable to metabolize the toxins, so they remain within the liver and slowly deplete liver yang. So they're the physical causes. Here we're talking more about the psychological causes. So just keep in the back of your mind that there are some physical causes to this. But if we go back to this diagram here, so we've got our infant. Now remember, in the first 3 years of life, that infant goes from being a little baby to being able to walk and run. And there's a burgeoning of activity, of cellular activity and growth. The body is sort of saying, yes, I'm moving forwards. And verbally, the body's, that being is saying, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. So what happens in those first 3 years is really important to a healthy development of the wood phase. So parents need to be able parents need to handle it delicately. So without crushing the no, without causing a block, without inhibiting that insertion, the child needs to be able to develop. A child who, for whatever reason, is in fear of asserting themselves, that child needs to be known that it is, or needs to be shown that it is okay to say no. So it's a very, very delicate age in development. And the child who grows up in a very authoritarian situation where their attempts at saying, no, I am not that, I am this, are just quashed, then that inhibits the development of the yang in their wood phase, and that can last a lifetime. Now, when we look at the wood yang deficiency, in terms of a personality, these are the people who have the passive aggressive personality. Now, their inhibition to assertion, their block to being who they are, creates a sense of impotency, and with that impotency comes a sense of rage. Now, remember, they don't have the yang, they don't have the direction, they don't have the action to actually to enact that rage. All they have the resources for is covert resistance, is messing with things so that the person of authority who they're trying to resist feels that same sort of humiliation that they have felt in their own inhibition to assertion. So these people are stubborn and negative, they're envious. So in terms of cognition, the way these people think is quite spiteful. So that's the negativity. Like they're not very positive people. They in that block to becoming, they only see the negative. Now, they're tortured by their ambivalence, that inability to move forwards, that inability to respond to the situation, to move forwards and rise up against the inhibition, leads a very tortured way of thinking. Now, these people are preoccupied with vengeance, and their whole MO of being is they want to keep moving, but they have a fear of asserting themselves. So they want to keep moving, but not moving forwards. So these people, they experience the wood yang deficiency, experiences anxiety when they're faced with having to assert themselves. So these people might face anxiety with talking, with oral presentations, with performances. You know, they have a fear of failure. They're operating under the anxiety of a threat of humiliation, of the humiliation that they experienced when in those formative years, when their being was inhibited. And they can have guilt or fear, like a guilt for existing, but also a fear for the disapproval of existing. And these people, they self-torture themselves. Now, the depression manifests as sort of a muffled irritability and agitation. It's an angry withdrawal. They feel worthless. They feel inadequate. These people have never been allowed to be themselves. You know, these are the people who, like for example, a young musician kid who grows up in an academic family who is not allowed to explore the arts, but is made, become academic. So, well, that's just one example. So these are people who are not allowed to live their true being. Now, if psychosis occurs, it's generally from prolonged isolation, or in a situation of prolonged isolation. And that's from the negativity. They've all their interpersonal relationships have been lost because of this prolonged negativity and way of operating. They can go into a catatonia, a suppression, a complete suppression of being, but there is always the potential with that suppression for an explosion outwards, for a manifestation of that, for that impotent rage to express outwards. In terms of love is very, very difficult for these people because they've had suppressed assertion. They're unable to put themselves out there. It's difficult to express love. And with they suppress their tender feelings, again, from a point of fear of humiliation, fear of, fear of not being able to fulfill their being. In terms of sex, the passive aggressive, often pain is the only way they can evoke feeling, and it may be the only avenue for tenderness for these people. So these people can often end up in sort of masochistic type situations in the sexual arena. Now, when we're looking at treating, so if we're looking at a liver-yang deficiency, so these are, I mean, you can use whatever points you want, but these are just some of the ones that Dr. Hammer used to talk about. Liver 3, he would talk about always as a modulation of the sympathetic nervous system. Liver 6 to move chi. Liver 13 moves liver chi, but also stomach chi, and enhances the mental vision and emotional growth. If we're finding that there's more damp and we want to move chi and deal with damp, then liver 4, and liver 4, he said, is good with people who have problems for forgiving themselves. If there's a development of heat with the damp, then we have liver 1 and liver 2. And liver 1 is particularly useful in people who have problems with authority, and liver 2 with that sort of agitated depression, and liver 8 for liver blood issues. In terms of gallbladder points, gallbladder 40 is a very good point. You know, it's sort of the clear yang to the head, and it gives somebody the ability to make decisions, to see a bigger picture from a higher vantage point. And gallbladder 8 to 12, the guys around here, this enhances and grounds one ability to assimilate and express information. In terms of 8 extras, Daimai. Daimai is dealing with the regulating of the wood phase. And you can use kidney points to support the liver yang for willpower and courage, you know, kidney 1, kidney 2, kidney 4, and kidney 3 and 7 to really strongly tonify chi and essence to then feed on into support the the liver yang essence. You can consider dew points to support the liver, you know, dew 4, moxa, and dew 14. And with dew 14, you know, you can either get somebody going or you can slow them down. And points, particularly when you're dealing with depression, it's always good to consider points that are beneficial for the central nervous system. And here, when we're dealing with the wood phase, you know, dew 16, dew 20, and gallbladder 39. So if we're looking at formulas, specific single herbs that Dr. Shen used to talk about in the use of, in the treatment of liver yang deficiency, Huang Qi Dan Chen and Shang Fu as a trio used together. Now, from the Shanhan Lun, Dongguai Sinitang, if we have a presentation of a liver yang deficiency, but with that deep, thin pulse, then we can consider Dongguai Sinitang. And Shen Dingjitang. Now this is more dealing with the deep pulses, the left middle position being deep, reduced qualities. Here we have the deficiency with a little bit of damp. And then Dr. Shen's Qi Wild formula. Here we're getting into more significant Qi, liver Qi yang deficiency. And here we're starting to get a separation of yin and yang. So we're starting to get sort of our empty and change of qualities in our left middle position. And this is Dr. Shen's Qi Wild formula. And also from the Shanhan Lung, Wuju Yutang. So this is good, you know, if we have the absent left middle position, our organ depth separating up to our empty as well, our empty quality as well. So here you can see how we're drawing on concepts out of the Shanhan Lun to treat a wood yang deficiency and to treat a passive aggressive personality. So, you know, now I hope this gives you some idea as to things to look out for, you know, with wood yang deficiency. There are, if you become adept at this, at the methods or at the model, this Dragon Rises Red Bird Flies model, you end up being able to use psychological signs just as you would physical signs in your diagnosis. And it's actually, I found it extremely helpful in my practice. Now, these lectures have been, these last two lectures have been an introduction to this 4-session course. Now, the class starts on Monday the 20th. And what we do in the class is we go through in more detail, like just the concepts of the cycle of yin and yang and the great turning, and the concepts of the conformations of the 6 conformations and concepts in the Shanhan Lun. And then we'll talk about the Dr. Hammer's model of evolution and being, and then we'll go through in more detail each of the phases in terms of the natural functions. So what we went through just there was a little bit brief, but it was liver yang deficiency. So there's also liver yang excess, liver yin excess, and liver yin deficiency, all within the wood phase. So we go through that same process for each of those, for each of those excesses and deficits for each of the phases. And for each phase, we'll talk about treatment suggestions in terms of acupuncture and formulas. So the schedule is, it starts on March 20th and it's Monday from 4 until 7. The sessions will be recorded, and if you miss a recording, then there'll be a quiz that you'll need to take. And they go week by week, except we skip a week with Easter. So we go from April 3rd to April 17. Okay, so does anybody have any questions? Anybody raise anything at all?
Hi, Karen.
Hi, how are you? Hi, Chen.
I'm good, thank you. Yes, thank you. You did quite a bit of update or upgrade of your presentation today, and I've learned a lot of new things. And I was looking at your notes last time, and to me, to grab the concept of the bond and the boundary, which is the earth element, somehow like It's
hang on,
unfamiliar.
Chen.
I need a bit more
Chen, I'm having a little
sample
bit.
or something to understand.
Chen, I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding you.
Okay. What I'm saying was about the earth and the earth element of the bond and the formation of bond, formation of boundaries. And the earth in and earth young's concept is similar. Is there any more things can make a bit more sense?
Okay, so our spleen
Yes.
gives us our ability to bond, okay, to form a connection. So somebody who has been through those first 3 years of life and has received bonding, has bonded with the mother, has, you know, trusts that the mother will be there, that all their needs are taken care of, then that person then has their earth yin. Their earth yin is functionally developed. So that means going through life, that person is able to connect to people. That person is able to bond to people.
Okay.
So if you have a healthy spleen, like if
Mm-hmm.
you have a spleen, if your spleen is functioning normally, then you can reach out and connect to people. If in the early years you didn't bond with your mother, say if you had a drug addict mother who left you at home and you were just by yourself as an infant, you know, in a soiled diaper and hungry, and, you know, so that bonding never happened. So that means that that person's, their earth phase, they develop a young deficiency, like a spleen deficiency. So that spleen deficiency goes with them throughout their life, and they have trouble making that connection, making that bond with people throughout life.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's make a perfect sense now. But so that's mean the earth in really is a formatted, or it's the crucial in the first 3 years.
Yes,
Where
yeah. Like bonding is determined like from through gestation, and that's important too. It's like the mother's ability to love the fetus as it's developing, to bond with the fetus, to say, I will not drink alcohol, I will take good food, I will get good sleep, I will not stress, you know, all those things. That all those things determine the quality or the ability of that person, or of that gestating fetus once it's born, and then through the first 3 years of life. It's that connection with the mother that then sets the tone for bonding for the rest of the life.
Sure. Wow,
okay,
that's crucial. Yes.
yeah, very crucial. And, you know, as I said, an earth, that like the earth young is about separations, is about healthy separations. So, and as I think I mentioned it, maybe I didn't have time to explain it well. A separation doesn't mean severing. A separation can mean like, in those first 3 years, you're bonded closely, we hope, to your parents. But then as you get older, you start going to school. So there's a little bit of separation there from your parents, and that's a function of the earth young. And that then the developing person goes and bonds with their first teachers. That's the bonding with the first teachers is a function of the spleen. The ability to separate from the parents is a function of the stomach. Okay, so it's the ability to separate is earth yang. The ability to bond is earth yin.
Okay.
And I mean, like, it's very hard to get all of this across in a 1-hour lecture. However, you know, when we've got 3 hours, like we do at the fire phase, we spend a whole 3 hours on the fire phase, but for all the others, we've got an hour and a half per phase. So we actually get to talk through, and everybody can ask questions, and then we can get to the bottom of it. But does that make more sense now about bonding?
Sure. Yeah.
And so now you can see the significance. That's why I always ask about childhood and about how that person, what the situation was in the house. You know, were both parents there? Was there stress in the house? Was there a death of a parent? You know, all of those things are really, really important to the bonding, and bonding is crucial to us as humans.
So if a parent come in to say, my kids have this separation anxiety of going to school, it usually we interpret as to say, this kid has a stomach energy deficiency. That's what that's the concept.
Well, it could be a separation, but it could be that person's overbonded, that child was never allowed to explore boundaries, that child was overprotected, and that child has never been let out of its mother's sight, you know, has never been able to crawl to the edge of crawl to the edge of a step and look over the edge of a step and find out what's there, and maybe even roll down a small step, which is all part of learning. Okay, reality testing is part of learning. And in an overbonded person, they don't get that, they don't have that chance to test reality. So when all of a sudden they're expected to go to school, they have no idea how to operate. Like, they get their separation anxiety. So you need to delve into it a little bit more deeply than that, but it could either be overbonded or it could be a yang deficiency.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's much better. I was waiting to ask you this question. Oh, thank you. That's great.
Okay. Yay,
yeah.
we got there. All right.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, guys. Well, look, we've got the early bird for the class finishes this weekend. So I think you've got the QR code there. It's a really great information, and it is very, very helpful to your diagnosis and treatment of people, and just understanding sort of I think it's very easy in medicine just to focus on the physical manifestations of our patients, but as Dr. Hammer makes or draws our attention to, it's really important to pay attention to the mental and to the spiritual, the sort of the psycho-emotional clues, because they are just as important and probably come up before the physical manifestation. So if we're good with our diagnosis in terms of, or picking up on those clues, then our ability to treat, it's much easier to treat earlier than when something is manifested into a physical manifestation. Okay. All right.
Karen, I'm looking forward to see you on the 20th of March, and we come all the way from Canberra, and we come back after 7 p.m. But we committed to come.
Okay,
and,
all right.
Looking forward.
Okay, so it should be a good class. I look forward to seeing you too, Chen, or seeing you on Zoom.
Sure, we're going to come in to feel the energy.
Okay.
All right. Okay. See you then.
All right.
Thank
okay.
You.
So,
yeah. Karen, I have a question. Are the classes are Zoom classes, aren't they?
Yeah. The Zoom classes.
All right. I thought they were. For a moment, I had a confusion that they were face to face.
No. They're Zoom classes. It's 4 till 7 on Zoom, and they're recorded. And if you miss the recording, then you get to do the quiz.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. I'll see you then. I've rearranged my Monday afternoons on those specific days. So yeah, I should be good. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Any other questions? I might just stop the recording now.